would like to, on this video, begin to do a study, an inductive study of Akkadian grammar, working through the prologue of Hammurapi and beginning with a few lines in the prologue. Let me just say a couple tools that are helpful is a concise dictionary of Akkadian by Jeremy Black, Andrew George, and Nicholas Postgate has helped me a great deal. Also, a book called An Akkadian Handbook by Miller and Mark Shipp. And then I enjoy going back to the older book, Cuneiform Parallels of the Old Testament by Rogers. Robert William Rogers has been very helpful. And of course, the one that I alluded to when I did the epilogue, inductive grammar, was David Marcus, A Manual of Akkadian, which has been a wonderful help to me. There's also a translation by Riemschneider that is very, very good. And I would say one of the greatest works is the Grammar of Akkadian in an, let's say, a deductive manner, and by John Hunegard. And it's a wonderful work, very thorough, very thorough. And so if anyone is looking for a detailed type of grammar, that would be the one to go to for getting a thorough and wonderful overview, not only overview, but a detailed understanding of Akkadian grammar. Also, I had mentioned Riemschneider. It has been translated and by Caldwell, and I needed to mention that. In terms of dictionaries, the little one I just mentioned has been extremely helpful to me, and I would recommend it very highly. Of course, you have your big dictionaries like von Soden and the Chicago Assyrian Dictionary. They are huge dictionaries. The von Soden one is in German. And so, again, I find this little one to be very helpful to me. I use von Soden at times, but I find the little one to be especially helpful to me, the one that I mentioned here by the Concise Dictionary of Akkadian by Black, George, and Postgate. Let me just say a word again about my own background. I have been a seminary professor. I'm now retired. My field was Old Testament. I was the chair of Old Testament in my seminary teaching. Presently, I'm retired and I'm trying to keep my mind active. And so to do that, I'm going back to some of the Akkadian that I learned years ago when I was working on my master's and PhD. I did my Master of Arts at the Dropsy College in Philadelphia and my PhD at NYU, where I primarily focused in Hebrew Bible. But part of the requirement was to also work in Akkadian. And therefore, I'm trying to revive what I learned many years ago. That was in the 80s, some time ago. And I'll be honest, I never taught Akkadian at seminary. I think there was twice that I had a few students that wanted to do a little bit in it, but not really. My primary focus has been on inductive Hebrew and Greek grammars from the Hebrew Bible and the Greek New Testament. But I would like to just try to work through some of the prologue of Hammurapi now. And I love to do inductive linguistic work, which means I work through the text pretty literally, and then try to identify each word that I can grammatically. And I would invite anyone to find a good transliteration online. There are many transliterations that you can find, and I would just encourage you to do that and follow along as we try to work through the first few lines of the Prologue of Hammurapi. I have finished the epilogue and enjoyed doing that. And now I'm trying to broaden out and do the prologue. I don't claim to be an Akkadiologist at all. My main teaching has been in biblical studies. I did my first doctorate of theology in Bible from Dallas Seminary. That was in English Bible with a Greek major in my THM, my Master of Theology. But then in my work at Dropsy, my MA there, and my PhD at NYU, I had about 3 years of Akkadian. I'm trying to bring it back and trying to keep my mind active at this time in life. So I don't come across as a professional Akkadiologist at all. I'm just enjoying this, and please feel free to correct me, but I'll do my best to work through the text and looking at the grammar inductively. So we begin in the first line, and let me say, I really appreciate the translation by, in the and the ancient Near Eastern text. And this is a work that we used a lot in my seminary work and even my PhD work. The Code of Hammurapi, translated by Meek, M-E-E-K, Theophil J. Meek. And basically, I want to read his translation of the first few lines. Then I want to go back and try to put it in a very literal way, working through the text inductively and doing the grammar as we come to it. He translates it as this, or like this. When lofty Anu, king of the Anunnaki, and Enlil, Lord of heaven and earth, the determiner of the destinies of the land, determined for Marduk, the firstborn of Enki, and Enlil, the Enlil functions over all mankind, made him great among the Igigi, called Babylon by its exalted name, made it supreme in the world, established for him in the midst an enduring kingship, whose foundations are as firm as heaven and earth. That's where I would like to go through these lines and do it by going literally. And Burger, I'm following Burger in my transliteration, and I have done my own normalization of the text. So I'll read that and then also seek to work through the grammar. So we begin. Inu anam sirum shar ana Anunnaki. That is, when Anu, exalted, king of the Anunnaki. And we could render that when exalted Anu. Notice Inu is a conjunction followed by Anu. And if you're following in a transliteration, you have a capital which represents the Sumerian sign for Anu. The Akkadian is Anu. And we asked the question, who was Anu? And according to the notes that I'm reading again from Meek in Anet, ancient Near Eastern text, he was the sky god, the leader of the pantheon, and worshipped especially in the temple of Iana in Yurik, along with the goddess Inanna. This is on page 164 of ancient Near Eastern text. So we begin with the sky god, the leader of the pantheon, in Anu. So when Anu, Sirum is my normalization, and I would render this exalted. Notice the adjective comes after the noun. When Anum exalted, or when the exalted Anum, Shar Anunnaki, king of the Anunnaki. Notice here, Shar is from Sharum, and it means king. It is interesting, Shar is in construct then with Anunnaki. In other words, we shorten Sharum, we knock off the ending, and we have Shar in construct with Anunnaki. And notice Sharum is the noun meaning king. So king of the Anunnaki. By the way, Lugal means big man in Sumerian. And that little d is meaning a dinger sign looking at a king. So when Shad, the king of the Anunnaki. Now, who were the Anunnaki? The Anunnaki, according again to Meek on page 164, was basically the gods that attended to Anu. And he writes the Igigi are the lesser gods attendant on Enlil, or who worked with Enlil. So basically, these were lesser gods that attended Anu. So Anu, the sky god, leader of the pantheon, is first addressed as exalted, and he is the king of the Anunnaki. Then he goes on, Hammurabi goes on, Dinger Elil, or Enlil. And basically we have a capital E-N and a capital L-I-L, which basically is referring to Enlil. And this is followed then by Bel, B-E-L. Bel is from Beilum, meaning Lord. So Lord, and then we have Shameh. Shameh means Lord of heaven. Shamu means heaven in Akkadian. And it's interesting here, the A is the sign of the genitive. So we have U is nominative, E, I, or A is genitive, and is accusative. So Lord of heaven, and notice the Hebrew Shamayim. There's a relationship by way of cognate to Hebrew, I believe. Remember in Genesis 1, Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. And then we move to the next word, u, and is the conjunction etzetim. Etzetim means earth. It's from etzetu. And again, notice it's in the genitive, with the I-M ending. So we're looking at Enlil, the Lord of heaven and of earth. And Enlil, according to what I have been able to come up with, was the god of the Sumerian pantheon, chief god, city of god of Nippur, son of Anu. And he then is able to confer a lilship, as they call it, onto the other gods, as did Anu. And I got this on page 50 of the little book that I had referred to entitled An Akkadian Handbook. So we move on then, and Enlil, the Lord of heaven and earth, two genitives, followed by Shar from Sharum in construct. And then we move on, Sha'im Shimat Matim, who determines the destinies of the land. Notice, as we look at Sha'im, we're looking at a participle, at a G, a participle in Akkadian. Notice the AI vowel pattern is looking at a participial construction, and it's from Shi'amu, meaning to fix or decree. And it's a G, a participle, masculine singular, and we could translate it, who determines, the determinator, the one who determines. Shimat Matim. Shimat Matim means the destinies of the land. Notice here, Shimat is meaning destiny from Shim to, and here we have a feminine plural, the destinies Matim of the land. And notice Matim is from Matu, meaning land, and that im ending, again, is a genitive singular. And Shimat is a plural feminine noun in construct with Matim. That is the destinies of the land. By the way, this construct, this kind of construction occurs all the time in Hebrew, like in Genesis 1. Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz v'ha'aretz hayata tohu v'vohu v'ruach Elohim, and the Spirit of God was soaring or hovering over the face of the waters. So notice you have two nouns in construct, and we have the same kind of construction here. So the one who determines the Shimat Matim, the destinies of the land. And then we move on. Ana Dinger Marduk, for Marduk, Amar Utu, by the way, is those capital letters looking at Sumerian, and the scribes would often put Sumerian and then put it into Akkadian. So Ana is the preposition for, and Marduk, for Marduk, Amar Utu in Sumerian means Marduk, Marim Reshtim Sha'ia, Dinger Ia. So if we would work through it slowly, for Marduk, the son, the firstborn, that is the firstborn son. Now notice, Ana is the genitive here, is the preposition. It takes the genitive. For Marduk, the son, the firstborn of Ia, or Enki. Notice here, Shah is the relative pronoun, and here it's functioning as a genitive. That is, the son, the firstborn of Ea, or Akkadian Enki, and the Sumerian Enki as well. Notice here, Marim has Dumu, which is the Sumerian for son, and again it is in the genitive, going with Ana, and Reshtim is the adjective, also in the genitive singular, both in the genitive singular, meaning firstborn. So the son, the firstborn of Ea, or Enki. Now we ask the question, who is Ea, or who is Enki? And basically, again, as I sought to search this out, Ea, also Enki, is the father of Marduk, god of wisdom, associated with the water and creation, patron god of artisans, protector of the persecuted. This is on page 49 of the work, An Akkadian Handbook. And so we're now looking at Ea, who, as we said, is the father of Marduk. He also goes by the name Enki. And so we're looking here now for Marduk, the firstborn son of Ea, or Enki. And then we move to the next phrase, Dinger Ililu, capital En, period, capital Lil, is the Sumerian for Enlil, and Ut. We would put that with Ililut, meaning the Enlil functions. That is, of Enki, the Enlil functions. So what Hammurapi seems to be saying, for Marduk, the firstborn of Enki, the Enlil functions, which Enki gives, and then he goes on, Kishat Nishi. By the way, notice here we have Kish, capital K-I-S, with a V mark on top, like a sheen in Hebrew, and Nishi, Kisat, means totality, the Enlil functions, hence the totality of mankind. Nishi is from Nishum, meaning mankind, and notice it's a genitive singular. So the totality of mankind, and we might put a preposition before this, over. The Enlil function had to do with, in a sense, the authority over the totality of mankind, from Nishum, and the genitive here, Nishi. Here we have the noun Kisat, totality, in construct with Nishi. So over the totality of mankind. Now we come to the verb. It's interesting, in this introduction, the verb keeps coming at the end of phrases. And it's my understanding that this went back to the Sumerian, which did the same kind of construction. So the totality of mankind, he established for him, that is for Marduk, in my understanding. Notice Ishimushum means he established for him. And here we have the shum is your dative, meaning for him, and Ishimushum would be a G preterite to establish, and it's a subjunctive which he established, in my understanding, for him, Shum. So the Enlilut, that is the totality of mankind, which he established for him. Then we move on, and he's going to tell us further more as to what he did. And so notice in the next phrase, in Igigi Ushar Bishu. Among, in here means among the Ngigi, he made him great. Ushar Bishu. In other words, Marduk is made great among the Igigi. Now, who are the Ngigi? Well, again, I go back to Meek here, where he's talking about this is in note 2. In this inscription, the Ananuki are the lesser gods attendant upon Anu, and the Igigi are the lesser gods attendant on Enlil. So Marduk, then it appears to me, has been made, established him, and among the Igigi, he has caused him to be made great. Notice, in Igigi Ushar Bishu. Notice Ushar Bishu is a Sheen preterite, third masculine singular from Rabium. And notice the pronoun, the pronominal suffix, him, in the shu here. So he has caused to make him great. By the way, the Sheen stem in Akkadian is very parallel to the Hay stem in Hebrew. It's stem of causation. So among the Igigi, he made him or caused him to be great. And then notice Babilam, and the Sumerian has Ka Dinger Ra. And then you have a little key sign, K-I, which is looking at a place name. And now we're looking at the Sumerian, which in Akkadian is Babylon. Babylon. Notice the Am here, among the Igigi, he made him great, is in the accusative singular. So Babylon, by its name, exalted name, he named. So he named Babylon. And Babylon is the object, hence the Am, the accusative singular. So it's by its name. Notice Shum Shu. The word here, Shumu, means name. And so Shum is in construct with Shu, the pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. So by its name, and now we have Sir Ram, that is another adjective. By its exalted name, he named it. Speaking of Babylon, Ibiu, he named. And I'm taking this as an in preterite, third masculine singular from Nabu. And that in of the stem had caused in Biu, I think, became in Ibiu by assimilation, a reverse assimilation from the root Nabu, causing the in of that stem to change to a B. So he named. So in other words, Marduk is naming Babylon here, it seems to me. Let me just say this. the son, who is Marduk? He is the son of Enki again, and consort of Sarpanit. He is the god of Babylon, and in Hammurapi's time, the god of the Babylonian Empire, with the functions of Enlil delegated to him. And Meeks writes, he is worshipped especially in the temple of Esagila in Babylon. So this is a, can I say, a definition of the importance of Marduk and his importance as the god of Babylon, and how he is now letting Hammurapi be one who's going to write his laws, or the laws that would be followed at that time. So then we move on into the next phrase, and it reads, in Kibratim Usha Terushu. In the world, he caused it to be great. I'm seeing that to refer to Babylon. Notice as we look at that phrase, in the world, speaking of Babylon, and in is the preposition that takes the genitive case here. In Kibratim, genitive singular, from Kibratu, meaning world. Notice the Sumerian has ub and then a dot and mesh, looking at a plurality, meaning the whole world, it seems to me. So in the world, Ushaterushu, he caused it to be great. That is Babylon. And notice here, the root here, in my understanding, is from Wataru, a 1W root. And what we have here then is Ushatershu, which I'm reading as a Sheen T preterite, to be great. That is, and notice the Sha with the T infix, and from the root, not the T infix, because it's from Wataru. So it's simply a sheen stem here, meaning to be great. To be numerous or more numerous is another meaning of Wataru. But I think here it's looking at the greatness that he has established in establishing Babylon. Then we move on. Notice the shu is your pronominal suffix, third masculine singular, where he caused it to be great. And then in the next phrase, Ina libishu sharutam daritam. In its midst, perpetual kingship. Notice here, inna is a preposition meaning in. Libishu is from libu, meaning in the heart, or here in its interior, or in its midst. And shu is your pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. Sharutam daritam, a kingdom that is perpetual. Notice the am ending is showing an accusative singular, in that remember, is nominative, is genitive, is accusative. So a kingship, and daritam is from daritu, and sharutam from sharutu, meaning a perpetual kingship. Then we move on, Shakima Shame Uedsetim. That is, whose, as kima is the preposition taking the genitive case here. My mind goes back to the Hebrew kaf, which is as in Hebrew. And here we have kima. Sha is your relative pronoun, whose as shame, as heaven. And notice kima is taking the genitive here from shamu, as heaven, et setim, and earth. And im again is also genitive. So whose as heaven and of earth, ishda sha shur shuda. And then we have finally the verb, which is ukinushum. That is, as heaven and earth and ishdasha, its foundations. In other words, he established its foundations as heaven and earth. And notice ishdasha, sha is your pronominal suffix, third feminine singular, and ishdu means foundation. And we're looking, he established its foundations at an accusative with the da in my understanding here, the a. And then shur, shuda, that is, and firmly founded. Again, an adjective, shur, shuda, meaning firmly founded. So he established its, can we say, foundations, firmly founded. And now we finally come to the verb at the end, ukinushum. That is, he established it. He established for him, we could say. Here, ukinushum is a D, and notice D is like the PL in Hebrew. Here we have the doubling of the N, and the root is kanu, and a D preterite, third masculine singular, plus the dative shum. So he established for him, that is, honoring Marduk, he established for him Babylon in this way and made it, can we say, like the center of everything. And so Meek's translation follows it very well, I think, in giving a summary of it. I was trying to just follow blow by blow, word by word. When lofty Anun, king of the Anunnaki, and Enlil, lord of heaven and earth, the determiner of the destinies of the land, determined for Marduk, the firstborn of Enki, the Enlil functions over all mankind, made him great among the Igigi, called Babylon by its exalted name, made it supreme in the world, and established for him, and that is for Marduk, in its midst an enduring kingship, whose foundations are as firm as heaven and earth. So we have tried to work through the grammar. One of the things that has come to me as I've done this is the contrast between the polytheism of the Babylonian worldview and the Hebrew biblical worldview. And of course, we begin in Genesis 1, Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And so Genesis shows the wonderful monotheism. And what we have here is polytheism, and there are other gods that will be named in this prologue. One of the things I'm finding, I'm learning about the gods of Babylon by going through the prologue in this way. So I hope this is helpful as a Christian interpreter as well as a Christian minister. I try to make application to the New Testament, and I see again what I believe is monotheism in a triune God, that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, three distinct persons, but one God, who is the creator of all things. And my mind goes back to Genesis, excuse me, John 1. In the beginning, in arche ein halagas, kai halagas ein prostantheon, kai theos ein halagas. In the beginning was the Word was face to face with God, and the Word was God. And then that final, verse 3, panta diautu agenitam. All things came to be through him. Without him came to be not one thing that has come to be. So when we read the New Testament, we also see one God, but we see one God who we as Christians believe exists in three distinct persons of the triune Godhead. And so again, it's interesting to me as I do a comparison of the Hebrew Bible, the Greek New Testament, and working in the, the Prologue of Hammurapi. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps some in a grammatical understanding. I'm learning as I'm doing this. Thank you.